Russia invaded Ukraine 5 months ago. Initially, they got smacked badly, pushed back from Kiev, the capital. But for the past month, there's been a stalemate along the eastern front and the southern front. Yesterday and today, that ended. In the east, in Donetsk, Russia launched a broad attack. Now, the green circles on this map represent the worst fighting over the last couple of days. And they captured one of Ukraine's biggest nuclear power plants, which to Ukraine is a big blow and also potentially a big danger. But Russia also switched a lot of its soldiers to the southern front, away from the eastern front, where this fighting is, to the southern front, apparently to resist the Ukrainian counterattack there that has so far reportedly recaptured 2 Ukrainian towns. Joining me is Michael Shoebridge, a former senior defence and intelligence official, now with the Australian Strategic Policy Institute. He's director of its Defence Strategy and National Security Program. Michael Shoebridge, always great to catch up with you. I don't get what's going on. There's a whole fog of war over the front at the moment. What do you think is happening now in Ukraine? Which way is this war tipping?
Well, Andrew, I think you're right about the 2 broad places where the fighting's really intensified. It's in the east around Donetsk, and the Russians are trying to conduct a big, broad offensive there, but really it looks like they're only able to do some quite limited attacks towards 2 small towns there, and the Ukrainians are resisting that quite effectively. So to me, it looks like what was meant to be a really major offensive, the Russians are just struggling to have the forces able to do that. They're still trying to cobble together new forces out of volunteer battalions in places like Moscow and Russian regions and Chechnya, and they're not having a lot of luck. So it doesn't look like they've got the scale to do this broad offensive they want around Donetsk. And as always in war, Russia's adversary, the Ukrainians, get a vote. And you talked about the counter-offensive the Ukrainians seem to have launched down in the south. There are reports saying that they may even have cut off Russian forces in the city of Kherson in the south after destroying the main bridge that connects that city to the rest of the Russian-held areas. So it does not look like Russia has all the momentum here. It'll be interesting to see how the Ukrainian counter-attack develops. But behind the lines of the Russian occupation, Ukrainians aren't cooperating. So Russia's also having trouble controlling and operating the parts of Ukraine it seized.
And of course, we're also seeing these HIMARS and all that. These new weapons, particularly from America, that are very accurate in sending missiles way behind the Russian lines, blowing up dozens of their ammunition depots. So I don't know. We often have General Jack Keane as a regular on this show from the Institute for the Study of War. That Institute for the Study of War says that this may well be one of the last hurrahs, that the Russians are giving it one huge push, but it might not be able to have much steam behind it.
Well, that's right. I mean, the Russian plans have never gone according to plan. And one of the big problems we saw in that attrition phase that now has ended is the Russians just couldn't seem to reinforce and supply their forces well. And they've lost some of their best people, and they're replacing them with pretty much forcibly recruited new battalions they're calling volunteers. So the quality of the Russian military that's involved here is much lower. But on the Ukrainian side, really, the US, NATO and the EU have been giving the Ukrainians a whole lot of support, probably enough not to lose, but not enough support to really win this war. That's the other problem.
Yeah, it sure is. Now to another potential conflict that's sort of blown up, Nancy Pelosi, Speaker of the US House of Representatives, let it be known she wants to visit Taiwan, democracy on an island that China says is actually a rogue province, and she must not go. Pelosi says that China has threatened very tough action if she does go, although she's not quite sure exactly what to believe. Here she is.
I think what the president was saying is maybe the military was afraid our plane would get shot down or something like that by the Chinese. I don't know.
When she says the president, she's referring to President Biden, who foolishly, I think it was last week, said, The military thinks it's too dangerous for her to go, which means she really now has to go. Otherwise, it looks like a terrible backflip. And America's top general said, well, yesterday, he's in Australia at the moment, said, well, steps will be taken to protect her. Here he is.
If, in fact, Speaker Pelosi decides to travel, that'll be a decision that she and she alone makes. And if she decides to travel, and if we're asked, we'll provide necessary support. I don't know that it will necessarily increase tension or not. We'll have to wait and see. There's certainly some rhetoric coming out of China that is quite disturbing about that.
So the Americans are very worried about the Chinese reaction. But how can the US afford to back off on this visit now?
Well, I don't think they should. Beijing has been trying to isolate Taiwan from the international community for years. Biden shouldn't look at all like he can control where the Speaker of the House in Congress, Nancy Pelosi, does and doesn't choose to visit. He doesn't want to look like he's the kind of dictator that Xi is able to be in China. Democracies are messy, and politicians like Pelosi should be free to visit other democracies. It's a big mistake to have even indicated that Biden had any control over this visit. And Taiwan needs more engagement, more support. Of course, Xi wants to look hard on this. He's having a phone call with Biden today, American time. He won't back down. He'll threaten. Does he really want war over a visit by Nancy Pelosi? He doesn't. Yeah,
but you know how these wars start, you know. One of the best books on the start of World War I is called Sleepwalkers. Just walking into these things, eyes shut. Taiwan this week knows it's under threat. It held its annual air raid drill in preparation for an invasion by China. And China yesterday sent a reconnaissance plane into Taiwanese air defence space, and not just to the west of the island, as you know happens almost daily. Planes going to the west and then back again, but also to the south and east, that going right round the back. Things are getting very tense, Michael.
They are, and that's why not just America, but other countries should be engaging politically with Taiwan, and we should have visible visits backwards and forwards. The more of the international community that does that, the harder it is for Xi to say this is just an issue between Taiwan and the mainland. This is a massive international issue, and stepping away from engagement with Taiwan now because of Beijing's threats only hands more control to Beijing.
Yeah, well, how weak of Australia for so long not to recognise Taiwan, but there you go. Michael Shoebridge, always great to and insightful to talk to you. Thank you so much.